We are on the road towards Magnificent 7, the ReLoaded podcast. Once again, on the air, Dave Bradshaw with you and James R. Kennedy alongside me, as always. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, and by the end of this, I'm going to be even better, Dave Bradshaw, because you, my friend, will have to eat humble pie. You've been talking for weeks, borderline 8 weeks, maybe even 9 weeks, 10 weeks, who knows at this point, but you have been jawing off about this so-called evidence that you have that I rigged the Defiant Wrestling Commentator of the Year award. And I'm sick of it, quite frankly. So come on then, give me your evidence. Come on, let's get this over and done with.
We'll get to that.
We will get to it. We'll get to it. It's because it doesn't exist. You're putting it off.
No, the reason I'm putting it off is because there's far more important things to talk about, not least of which is what happened at the very end of Loaded this Sunday. That final moment of Loaded after Rampage successfully defended the Defiant World title against Nathan Cruz. And then what happened? Well, Rory Coyle showed up and revealed, by ripping the label off that VHS tape, having dispatched Primate, apparently, we now find out that Rory Coyle's next target is the Defiant World Champion.
Incredible. Just incredible because, as you said, Bradshaw, Rory Coyle has already chased Primate, of all people, out of Defiant Wrestling. He's been a constant threat, constant menace since he got here. And who's to say that Coyle won't do exactly what he says he will do? Who's to say that our next Defiant World Heavyweight Champion isn't this maniacal movie man, Rory Coyle?
Yeah, well, we've just had breaking news just a couple of hours, really, before we've been recording this, that we now know our general manager, General Amin, has confirmed that we will see at Magnificent 7 on March 16th, Rampage will defend that world title against Rory Coyle. I would imagine, by the way, I don't know the circumstances about surrounding how this match has been confirmed, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Rampage has gone to our general manager or to Simon Miller or to one of those guys and demanded it. I would think Rampage absolutely wouldn't be running away from this fight. He will be absolutely livid at what Coyle did and will want to beat the hell out of him.
Well, Rampage never one to back down from a challenge. He hasn't in the 300 or so days that he's been world champion in Defiant Wrestling. You can chart his journey all the way back to the beginning of Defiant Wrestling, and you still wouldn't find Rampage backing down from a challenge. But here's a question for you, Dave. It's something that, I couldn't sleep last night when I thought about Rory Coyle becoming the next champion. Is Coyle the single biggest threat that Rampage has faced yet here in Defiant since becoming champ?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a difficult question. I mean, Rampage, as you say, not only has he been champion for about, 310 days now, I think it is, something like that, but he's undefeated for longer than that. He's undefeated for over a year now in Defiant. And again, I've said this before, but time and again, we have thought that his title reign was in jeopardy. We thought that at Refuse to Lose. We thought that at Unstoppable against David Starr. We thought that so many times, a couple of times against Gabriel Kidd, and every time he's come through. So to flip that question on its head, I wonder whether this is Rory Coyle biting off more than he can chew. Possibly. Because Coyle, obviously, is flying high psychologically, having promised, that he was going to get rid of Primate. He had this vendetta that had been brewing in his mind against Primate for over 800 days going into Unstoppable. He did exactly what he said he would do at Unstoppable. And so Coyle, in his own mind, at this point, probably thinks he's invincible. And he is now trying to take down the biggest, if you'll excuse the cliche, but the biggest dog in the yard, right, in the form of Rampage. And I'm not sure whether that is a step too far or whether Rory Coyle is every bit as dangerous as he claims to be.
Can you imagine, from Coyle's perspective, if he can somehow find a way to wrestle or indeed bludgeon that Defiant World Heavyweight Championship and away from Rampage, can you imagine the bragging rights this man will have? In just such a short time here in this company, he's chased Primate out of the place. He's targeting the alpha male in Rampage. I have to say, I didn't expect this. And I think that's Coyle's MO all over the back. maybe in terms of, in-ring acumen or technical skills or something like that, Coyle isn't the biggest threat that Rampage has faced. But I certainly believe in my heart of hearts that Rory Coyle is the single most unpredictable maniac that Defiant Wrestling has ever seen. And maybe, just maybe, as world-travelled as Rampage is, Rory Coyle is the most unpredictable performer, athlete, maniac, whatever you want to say, that the champion has ever come up against. This is one to watch, because Rory Coyle is one for head games, Rampage is one for face-to-face, and, I don't think this suits the champ. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you might not be wrong. I think Rampage obviously has never faced anyone like Rory Coyle before. I'm not sure anyone who gets in there with Rory Coyle has faced anyone quite like him before. And he's just... He has this, like, if he was an animal, he'd be a rabid dog with Rory Coyle. Do you know what I mean? He's got that kind of savageness to him that makes him so unpredictable. He's almost frothing at the mouth every time he's in there against someone. And yeah, I mean, I don't know whether the one thing that Coyle definitely has in his favour against Rampage is that Coyle undoubtedly is tough. He almost seems like he doesn't feel pain sometimes with there's Coyle in there, and he's just totally maniacal. I mean, the amount of things he finds to use as weapons, obviously there's those videotapes, but the thing he attacked Rampage with on Sunday was jump leads. Yeah. I mean, where does he get all this stuff? He comes with this sack of bizarre toys, to use the word loosely, every week. And I don't know. He is on a different level, is Rory Coyle. And yeah, maybe he is every bit the monster that he says he is. Let me ask you this, though. If he is, and if he does beat Rampage for the world title, what does that mean for Coyle's alliance with Gabriel Kidd? Because Gabriel Kidd is someone who absolutely craves that Defiant world title, assuming Kidd ever returns from this indefinite suspension he's currently serving. What would that mean if the man he has allied himself with gains the prize that he has sought for so long?
Well, it's a very good point, because immediately overnight, Rory Coyle would become the prime target in Defiant Wrestling, and that includes everyone. As you say, a man who has had Coyle's back recently, Gabriel Kidd, he would be licking his chops and thinking, that's where I deserve to be. I should be the champion. And also, I think it would be in the back of Gabriel Kidd's mind that he was unable to defeat Rampage. Okay, there were different circumstances behind those matches and reasons why Kidd couldn't get the job done. But if Rory Coyle beats Rampage, what does that do to the psyche of Gabriel Kidd? But to your point earlier, Dave, about Coyle, I don't think that this is necessarily a case of Rory Coyle doesn't feel pain. I think he likes it. It's almost this perverse pleasure he gets out of causing it. And maybe, this is just a guess, I don't know. I'm not going to claim to know anything about this man's mind. It's so fractured that I'd be here all night picking up the pieces. But the look in his eyes when opponents inside that ring are smashing him in the face with knees, elbows, everything, the look in his eyes suggests that he gets off in this. And that sickens me to say, but it's just an observation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The thing with Coyle is, I don't think you necessarily can think of a way to beat him other than knocking him unconscious. So if Rampage can hit the pile driver and hit it clean and knock him out for 3 seconds, then yeah, Rampage can win that and can retain the world title. But Rory Coyle, as you say, if he's conscious and breathing, if he's in pain, he's enjoying that. Right, and so whatever he's doing, if he's aware of his surroundings, he will kick out. I mean, there's no way to keep him down if he is currently conscious. You know what I mean? I don't know. I can't think of a time in his career so far here in Defiant that we've seen Rory Coyle stay down for any extended period of time like he's actually been badly hurt.
Well, that pile driver that Rampage delivers, every time he hits a spine buster, what do I say? Arn Anderson would be proud of that. It's arguably, or inarguably, as far as I'm concerned, the best spine buster in pro wrestling today. The exact same goes for that pile driver. No one locks on that move. That punishing finisher like Rampage does. You may be right. It may only take one of those pile drivers on Rory Coyle to put him down for the count, and then Rampage is over this problem. But that is the problem. Therein lies the problem. Rory Coyle is not a small man. Rory Coyle, okay, he's not going to be on any, magazine covers or anything like that in terms of the amount of rippling muscles that he has on his body, but he is deceptively strong. We've witnessed it with our own two eyes. And the problem that Rampage has is the amount of damage he's going to have to dish out to Rory Coyle to even get him in the position for that pile driver. Now, this is a huge conundrum for the champion, and it's why I believe Rory Coyle is the most threatening challenger that we have witnessed for Rampage to date.
Here's a question for you. This one's just popped into my head right now. Do we know, and I don't think we do, but I'd be interested to hear what you think. Do we know that Coyle hasn't been plotting against Rampage for as long as he was plotting against Primate? Rampage is another guy who's been in Defiant since the beginning, as long as Primate was. And for all we know, he might have the same kind of twisted vendetta against Rampage for some different reason that he had against Primate. This could be another thing that's been boiling in Rory Coyle's brain for 2.5 years.
Well, if you watch any documentary on any number of infamous serial killers in history, there's a common thread that runs throughout each of those discussions and films, and that is that they are very cerebral, very, very smart and clever human beings. Rory Coyle has that same predatory instinct. You can just see it. And he also comes prepared. A lot of people would look at this man and say, okay, he just turns up and he wants a fight and he craves violence. And yes, to a point that is true. But, what you're hinting at, Dave, is that Rory Coyle actually has some intelligence behind that lust for violence, and he will go out of his way, and forego sleep, nutrition, anything, if it means he gets the edge and the chance to study his victims. And make no mistake about it, that is exactly what Rampage is in Rory Coyle's eyes, a victim.
And I wonder as well if Coyle doesn't have something of a victim complex, which I know seems like a strange thing to say for someone as deranged as Coyle, but look at what his issue was with Primate, right? Coyle's issue with Primate seemed to be that he'd been denied opportunities. He had been robbed of opportunities because Primate didn't go to bat for him. And even if he doesn't have a personal vendetta against Rampage, and God knows whether he does or not, he certainly has a vendetta against the fact that he hasn't already been Defiant World Champion. Because in Rory Coyle's head, it is everyone else's fault that he hasn't spent the last 2.5 years on top of the Defiant Wrestling roster. So from Coyle's perspective, this chance to become Defiant World Champion at Magnificent 7 is something that's arriving 2.5 years later than it should have.
Well, think about, we were together when we clapped eyes on it. The first time that you and I were just sitting, you wouldn't talk to me, by the way, but that's another issue. We were sitting in the same room, but you wouldn't talk to me. And we were going through notes about the upcoming card for that evening, and we clapped eyes on the new Defiant World Heavyweight Championship belt. And you and I, it was the only time we looked up from our phones, looked one another dead in the eye, and pretty much said the same thing. That's gorgeous. That's beautiful. That's so well crafted, that you would have to be, such a great champion to even be lucky enough to be in the conversation to hold that thing. And then along comes Rory Coyle, a dishevelled, disgusting in some people's mind, just this depraved look that he gives every victim that he has in Defiant Wrestling. Do you think that Defiant World Heavyweight Championship would fit snugly around his waist? Because I don't. I think within weeks that thing would be battered, broken, all the rest of it. Because I think in Rory Coyle's mind, it's not so much holding that championship that matters. I think it's the symbolism behind it. And the fact that people would be so repulsed that he was champion that that would give him a sense of satisfaction.
Well, you know what? I don't think it wouldn't even go around his waist, would it? It would go in that dirty sack, and he would just drag it around with all the other bits and pieces he's found in whatever junkyard he's been raiding recently. I mean, it's a thought that's not a pleasant one to consider, is it? The idea that Rory Coyle would have that, as you say, that exquisite championship belt and all of the meaning behind it, all of the heritage behind it. You know that there is now a growing amount of heritage, a growing amount of classic matches associated with that Defiant world title over the past nearly 3 years now, and to think that it would be reduced to being dragged around with Rory Coyle's bag of tricks is deeply unpleasant.
You had to go and bring up the word sack and bag. And that makes me think horrible, horrible thoughts. Do you know why? I'm not going to do the daft thing Simon Miller does with his hands in his head, but here's why. Because a sack, a bag, is why we're getting all these random entrants in the Magnificent Seven match.
It is indeed. We're talking about Adam Foster's sack now, of course.
Come on.
A sack full of lollipops. And let's talk about that, because we now know the 4th and 5th entrants into the Magnificent 7 briefcase match that will happen at the Magnificent 7 event on 16th of March. Santos, Visage and MJF, we already knew about. MJF, of course, the wild card entrant. Santos and Visage successfully picked green lollipops to get in. And this past week, on Loaded, 2 more people did the same. Benji, who I know you're a big fan of, and Man Like DeReese. Both of them newcomers to Defiant, both of them with a huge opportunity coming up in Sunderland.
It's a massive opportunity, but, when you actually look at why Benji, which is a dog's name, by the way, and Man Like DeReese, when you actually look at the circumstances surrounding how they managed to get involved in this Magnificent 7 match, which is one of the most prestigious matches in Defiant Wrestling every year, bar none. And then along comes Simon Miller, who's an assistant to General Amin. Along comes Adam Foster, who is an assistant to an assistant. And they have this sack, this bag full of lollipops that theoretically they stole out of General Amin's office. And they're asking the roster to pick a colour. And if they get the right colour, then they are involved in the Magnificent 7 match. It's just ludicrous. This, along with this preposterous hunt for El Fantasmo's sunglasses, it just has me scratching my head about what's going on around here. And also, Bradshaw, on that note, unless I'm colourblind, those lollies that we saw on Loaded, they were yellow, not green.
They were lime.
Ah, come on.
Let's say they were limey green.
And another thing that's yellow is the streak up Simon Miller's back as well, because, I've been sending this guy Twitter DMs for ages, all these threatening gifts of people in punch-ups, and he will not face me one-on-one. The man's a coward.
What? Hang on a second. You've been challenging Simon Miller to a fight
for the longest time, but obviously he wouldn't be fighting me. I'm going to pay someone else to fight in my behalf.
Oh, I see. Okay, I was going to say I thought you'd suddenly grown some courage there, but obviously not.
Courage is overrated. It just gets you into trouble.
All right. Well, anyway, let's talk about the 5 people who are in that match: Santos, Visage, MJF, Benji, Man Like DeReese. Or rather, let's talk about the 2 empty spots. Who else would you like to see, out of everyone on the Defiant Wrestling roster, who would you like to see successfully pick a green/yellow lollipop out of Adam Foster's sack and claim one of those 2 remaining spots?
What a horrible, horrible sentence that is. I have to say, it hasn't escaped my attention that Simon Miller and Adam Foster, on their travels, they've been avoiding some of the roster, and I think that's not fair. You've got to give everyone an opportunity, and you're going to crap all over this for obvious reasons. But I believe that Gabriel Kidd should get an opportunity to pick the right coloured lollipop.
No, I said people on the roster.
Gabriel Kidd's part of the Defiant
no, he's
roster.
Not. He's suspended. He's suspended indefinitely. Let's not forget.
Oh, that's just a temporary thing.
I say that with an unnecessarily large grin on my face, but he's out. I mean, Gabriel Kidd, as far as we know, isn't even going to be part of Magnificent 7, so let's rule him out. Give me a different answer.
Well, I actually have taken this upon myself because I knew you would crap all over that, and I have crunched the numbers, I've done the maths, and I have worked out, and this is just a ballpark figure, it's not 100% accurate or anything. Maths was never my strong point, fashion was.
Or accuracy in general, but yeah.
Well, you can say what you want, but listen to this. Since General Amin suspended Gabriel Kidd from active competition here in Defiant Wrestling, the t-shirt sales have went to pot. They've went right down, and I have estimated that Defiant Wrestling, they are losing £5,000 each day that Gabriel Kidd is suspended. Now, that's just too much money to throw away. I think he should be reinstated immediately and given the opportunity.
It's also a number you've completely picked out of thin air for no reason whatsoever. But anyway, Gabriel Kidd is not an option. I'll ask you again. This is getting a bit tiresome now. Who else of the eligible people would you like to see in the Magnificent Seven match?
You know, you've got so many people. You've got Joe Hendry running around. We heard from him on this week's Loaded. He's got his issues with Gabriel Kidd, speaking of. He also wants that one-on-one match with David Starr that Kidd robbed everyone of. I think if I was going to just pick one, if you were to narrow it down to just one man, I would love to see what the badness John Bad Bones Klinger could do in this match. Now, I know he has issues with Justin Sysum. I know he does. And by the way, Sysum would have been watching as Klinger beat man like Darius, who is in the Magnificent Seven match this past week on Loaded. But yeah, I would say John Klinger, because yes, he had his opportunity before. He won the Ringmaster tournament. He got that crack at Rampage and the Defiant World Heavyweight Championship. Came up just short. But I'm loving this new attitude from John Klinger. You know, you just got to get with the badness. So I would say I would love to see Klinger involved in this match.
By the way, that match against a man like Darius last Sunday did see after the match Klinger try and do something similar to Darius, to what he did to Justin Sysum, and in particular to the throat of Justin Sysum. Fortunately, I do have word that Darius hasn't been as badly injured as we believe Sysum was. So man like Darius still scheduled to be part of the Magnificent Seven match, and that is a lucky escape, I would say, for that young man. Indeed, the issues that John Bad Bones Klinger has been causing here in Defiant have been a big headache for our general manager, General Amin, and of course his assistant, Simon Miller. And between them, they seem to have come up with what I think is a slightly dubious solution to that problem this Sunday. They're going to send out the assistant to the assistant, Adam Foster, to try and take care of the problem of John Klinger on Loaded this Sunday. This seems like a plan, with all due respect to our management team, that is doomed to fail.
Without doubt. You know, you're just throwing Adam Foster, this newcomer to Defiant Wrestling, who seems super keen. He's clearly in great shape. You can even tell that from these scenes backstage. And when you walk by the guy, you can just sense his power and strength. But, you know, he's coming up against a really bad man. John Klinger will do anything to hurt his opponents. It is what he loves doing more than anything. Cashing checks and breaking necks, right? It's the old cliche in pro wrestling. Well, John Klinger does it better than most. And I fear for Adam Foster, because I believe that this is, when you look at General Amin, he keeps popping up from behind pillars, underneath tables, all the rest of it. This man previously had full autonomy over matters in Defiant, but that's not the case anymore. And Bradshaw, I believe that General Amin only has himself to blame. Don't forget, he was the one who gave Simon Miller that wristband reading, "What would Mo do?" And that, you know, somehow in Simon Miller's warped mind, the coward that he is, he gave Adam Foster one that said, "What would Miller do?" And this threesome have come up with this harebrained scheme to put Adam Foster in there with John Klinger. As you say, it's not going to end well.
Let me ask you this, because it was essentially General Amin who decided to put Adam Foster in there, right? It was Amin, if you saw on Loaded, who was coaxing Simon Miller out of the eye shot of Adam Foster to put Foster in the match. It was Amin's idea. Now, I wonder whether General Amin, as you alluded to, is starting to regret his choice of management team. In particular, the fact that he hired Simon Miller, who then took it upon himself to hire Adam Foster. You know, Miller, according to Amin, this was I called it damning with faint praise when I saw it on Twitter earlier this week. He replied to a fan's tweet saying that Simon Miller is doing okay as his assistant, which wasn't exactly the most ringing endorsement. Clearly, Amin is a little bit puzzled as to why Miller has hired himself an assistant in Adam Foster. He's not particularly happy with the way in which the Magnificent Seven match is being organised with this lottery via Lollipop. Seems to have some of the same issues with that you have. So is General Amin wondering whether he has made some bad personnel choices?
I think so, and if he's not, I think General Amin should be, because when you look at it in the cold light of day, how long is it? How long is it before an assistant to an assistant, which Adam Foster is, wants his own assistant? And then, we have 4 of these clowns running about the place.
Hey, you could apply.
Nah, no, I think I'll give that one a miss. But
yeah, too high up the management structure for you, probably.
No, I'm overqualified, I think.
Oh, are you? What are your qualifications?
Anyway, what I was going to say was, I've got a couple of... never mind. Never you mind asking me personal questions like that. You don't ask a lady what her age is. You certainly don't ask James R. Kennedy what his qualifications are. No, I wear my qualifications every night of my life.
Yeah, heaven forbid that anyone should ask someone who wants a job what their qualifications are for it. Anyway, let's move on. And before we do, though, I just want to remind everyone again that Magnificent Seven is coming up on March 16th in Sunderland. If you want to join us there, we'd love to see you. We're also in Newcastle the following week, March 23rd, for more Loaded tapings. And we are headed to Leeds on April 17th for Lights Out. So if you want to join us in any of those 3 cities, Sunderland, Newcastle or Leeds, you can get tickets for all of them still at wearedefiant.com/tickets. And if you want to see Magnificent Seven live on demand, if you can't be in Sunderland in person, then of course our on-demand site is access.wearedefiant.com, and if you are a new customer, you get a 30-day free trial, so you can see Magnificent Seven for absolutely free with no commitment whatsoever. Now, let's talk about Loaded this coming Sunday, and in particular, the main event that we have coming up, because the man that gravity forgot returns to Loaded this Sunday as PAC takes on one of the most exciting young competitors on the British wrestling scene, making his Defiant debut, Robbie X. That's going to be a hell of a main event.
It is, and I'm not alone in this. Certainly not alone. From some of the tweets that I've been reading from people, I'm anticipating great things from this. Because, I can't wait to see what happens next with PAC in Defiant Wrestling. His win over David Starr was captivating. I was enthralled by his demands for more competition, because I like that about the Defiant scene. There is so much competition, and PAC recognises that. And it just shows you that there are some absolutely phenomenal pro wrestlers on this roster. Now we have a new one debuting, Robbie X. You probably know more about Robbie X than me. I've heard great things, but this is going to be a first for me, up close, live and in living colour, seeing Robbie X, and I'm relishing it. And I think Robbie X should as well, because Bradshaw, just think of this. If Robbie X can somehow pull out the victory over someone the standing of PAC, it could do wonders for his career. Should he emerge victorious, we could have a new sensation here in Defiant, and who knows what that could mean. It could mean money, title shots, prestige, the rest of it. If you beat someone like PAC on your first night on the job in Defiant, that is huge.
Or even if you put in a good performance and come close to beating PAC, right? I mean, David Starr didn't beat PAC, but put in a very memorable performance in PAC's first match with us here in Defiant, and obviously, in part because of that, got his world title opportunity at Unstoppable. So it is a huge chance, a huge opportunity for Robbie X. Robbie X, by the way, has had a pretty phenomenal year already. He's really kind of blossomed in this past year and been given more exposure in the mainstream than ever before. He was part of World of Sport, WRS Wrestling on ITV last summer, that 10-part series that took place on prime time Saturday night TV on one of the biggest networks here in the UK. He's been a mainstay in NGW that I'm a part of as well, and various other places up and down the country. But this is his first chance in Defiant, and I think it's his first. In fact, I'm sure it's his first match against PAC. So yeah, this is going to be a major moment for a career that is on very much an upwards trajectory in Robbie X's case, but he does need to, if not win, then at least put in a very, very solid performance and run PAC close. Because the last thing that Robbie X can afford at this fragile time of his career, where people are asking, hey, maybe this guy's the next big thing, but he can't afford to lose quickly and decisively to PAC. He has to be able to prove that he can hang in there with one of the best in the world.
And here's the thing as well, because to your point, look at what happened. David Starr didn't beat PAC. He came very, very close, but he didn't get his hand raised. And what happened? David Starr impressed the Defiant World Heavyweight Champion Rampage enough that David Starr got a title shot out of that. So it just shows you there's more than one way to skin a cat in this company. There's more than one way to turn heads, impress people. You're right. Normally I would say that winning is all that matters, because, you want that winner's purse. You want the lion's share of the money. And you want the bragging rights as well. But for Robbie X, this is all about making that first impression. As I say, turning some heads and impressing the right people.
Well, I mean, yes and no. To contradict slightly what I've just said, I think he does obviously... he's not thinking, Robbie X isn't looking at this and thinking, oh, as long as I put in a good performance, it's fine. No, Robbie X, obviously, like any competitor, is going in there thinking, no, I need to win. I need to make headlines around the world by defeating PAC on my Defiant debut. And to a point, he's right. I mean, obviously, that would skyrocket his career far quicker than a loss would. But all I'm saying is it's not the end of the world as long as he puts in a performance to be proud of. Now, he will be looking at this and thinking, you know what? The fact that people on Defiant Wrestling's official podcast aren't talking about me winning, but they're talking about just putting in a good performance, well, that maybe suits Robbie X. Because if no one thinks that Robbie X is going to win the match, then maybe if PAC doesn't think that, most importantly, then Robbie X can take him by surprise on Sunday.
He could. He certainly could. You never rule out anything in Defiant. We've learned that lesson the hard way. I've went solid on some predictions and ended up with a red face because I was 100% wrong. I'll admit it doesn't happen often, but I've been wrong about things that I was so confident were a safe bet. So pretty much nothing in this company is a safe bet at times. PAC knows that. I think that's why he likes being here. That is why he struck out on his own independently. It's why he's returned to Japan and had such success winning titles in Dragon Gate. It's certainly why he has watched what's going on in Defiant and thought, this is a pretty damn good place to be because the competition is rife. And Robbie X is not here because, he's just making up the numbers. Not by any stretch of the imagination. And that is why I'm so excited about this main event. I can't wait to see what happens. Will PAC get another momentum-boosting victory here in Defiant? Or will Robbie X shock the world, perhaps, and pull out the victory himself and then go on to bigger and better things?
All right, well, either way, I'm sure it is going to be a high-octane, jaw-dropping main event between PAC and Robbie X this Sunday, and it's going to be all part of Loaded. Loaded, of course, with us every Sunday, 8 p.m. UK time on the Defiant Wrestling YouTube channel. Right, well, that's just about all we have time for this week. Before we go, what are your plans this week?
Wait a minute. Wait just a minute here. Now, again, I mentioned it at the top of the broadcast, and you blew that off, and you sidestepped it, quite frankly. But you're not getting away with that twice, Dave Bradshaw. Listen, you have been saying for the longest time that you have evidence that suggests that I somehow rigged the voting for the Defiant Wrestling Commentator of the Year award. And you're just sour because I won it. I think that's, let's be honest about it, that's what it is. But where's this evidence? It's not forthcoming, is it? Come on, hit me with it. Hit me with it.
You know what? I'm a man of my word, and I did promise last week that if I couldn't produce the evidence this week to back up what I've been saying all year so far, that you in some way rigged that Commentator of the Year award vote, that I would publicly apologise to you on this week's podcast. Is that what you want me to do?
Go on then, come on, get down on your hands and knees and grovel for my forgiveness.
It's an audio podcast, you idiot.
Oh well, I still want the satisfaction of knowing that you did it. Come on, you've got to give me something here, Bradshaw. When you're wrong, you're wrong. You cannot cast these aspersions and these conspiracy theories, then be found out to be a liar, have no evidence to back them up, and then just toddle off and pretend it didn't happen. I'm a man of great character and moral fibre, and when I'm right, I like people to tell me I'm right. And on this occasion, I am right. So come on, come with the apology. Come on, it's okay.
All right,
let me
here we go. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Oh, just before we do, though, there is one little thing. I've got a little audio clip that I'd like to play you. It's from a phone call that I acquired.
What?
Just have a quick listen to this for me.
Hello, is that Brittany?
Hello?
Oh, no, never mind. Anyway, whoever you are, this is James R. Kennedy. How can I help you? Sorry?
Yes, my name is, Nikolai, Nikolai Volkov, Jr. I was given your number by my associate in Moscow, and I was hoping to talk to you about a proposition.
A business proposition. Now, wait a minute. You know, I get all sorts of crank calls all the time. How do I know you are who you say you are again?
Ask me anything about the motherland, Russia, and I will answer it.
Russia, got it. Okay, here's a question just for you, tailor-made. Who is the Russian heavyweight champ?
Ivan Drago.
Well, to be honest, I don't really know the answer, but that sounds about right. Okay, go on.
Good. Now, I am interested in seizing control of Defiant Wrestling, and I need a mole on the inside. I was very, impressed with the way you rigged the Commentator of the Year award, and I think you might just be the man that I need.
oh, you're a person of taste. Great. Well, that was a stroke of genius, if I do say so myself. But, you know, I'm struggling here, so help me out. Why should I help you? What does that have to do with me helping you?
Oh, well, I could give you 5,000 ruble.
Wow, okay, 5,000 ruble. Okay, now you've got my attention.
Now, before I decide if you are the right man for this job, I need you to tell me more about your genius plan to rig the commentary award.
Oh, honestly, you know, that was a walk in the park. You know, for someone like me, that was a walk in the park. Now, there's this Russian guy called Boris. You probably know him. You know, I met him at my local gymnasium. Who, you know, this guy, Boris, let's just say he knows people. So he agreed to hack some IP addresses and flood the vote in my favour. And in exchange, I gave Boris my password for Access Defiant. You know, he wanted to watch all the Joe Hendry matches he could stomach. So, in my opinion, I think that was a great bit of business, if I do say so myself.
You are clearly a well-connected man.
Yes, I am, and you're obviously a clever one. I'm very well connected and handsome.
Now, listen. What I want you to do is sabotage the General Amin, the general manager of Defiant Wrestling, so that he gets fired and we can install a new general manager who will turn the company into a propaganda tool for President Putin.
That sounds plausible. Actually, it sounds like a dream I had the other night, only instead of Putin it was Tony Blair. But let's not get bogged down in dreams. This is reality, my friend.
Are you prepared to help me bring down General Amin?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. The man's a total waste of space. You know, the way he's been running this company is a joke. I mean, this hunt for El Fantasmo's glasses, for Pete's sake. Then he made that harebrained decision to hire Simon Miller as his assistant. His stupid magic carpet he drags about the place. Amin's also been mean to H.T. Drake, and the list goes on. And between you and me, I think he might be a bit intellectually challenged, if you know what I mean.
Oh, is that so? At least he's a handsome man, no?
Well, you say that, but between you and I think he's got a little bit chubby recently too. It must be all those lollipops he keeps in that office of his.
Would you know, you son of... I mean, da. So you will help me then?
Yes, of course, Mr. What was your name again?
I can't remember.
You can't remember your own name.
Rusev?
Okay, Mr. Rusev Nikolai Volkov Jr. It's a pleasure doing business with you. That's a great name, by the way.
Good. I will be in touch soon with more details.
Okay, perfect. I'll speak to you very soon, my friend. Until then, arrivederci, as you guys say. Hello? Mr. Rusev Nikolai Volkov Jr. Hello?
Well. You do realise, by the way, that 5,000 rubles is what? It's about 50 quid. And that's what you've just sold yourself down the river for. Hello? Hello? I think he's gone. Of course he's gone. Oh, this is glorious. Well, that's unfortunate, isn't it? Well, I'm sure we'll get James R. Kennedy back next week to explain himself, but that was quite revealing, wasn't it? Well, let us know what you think about that. Let us know what you think about all the goings on here in Defiant Wrestling. You can tweet us, as always, at Defiant Rest. That's Defiant, WRES. You can tweet me at Dave Bradshaw. And if you want to tweet James R. Kennedy and give him your thoughts on what you've just heard, then at Top Class Kennedy is his Twitter account. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you, although he seems to be having some kind of Wi-Fi connection problems at the moment, which is oddly predictable. Anyway, that's just about going to do it. We will be back. Well, I'll be back. I hope James R. Kennedy will be with me because I've got lots I want to ask him next week here. Enjoy Loaded on Sunday, and we will see you again next week here on the ReLoaded podcast.